The chilling tale begins on a cold February night in Sapporo, Japan. Within the city's bustling red light district, a love hotel designed for secretive liaisons becomes the epicenter of a crime that would haunt the nation. It was a place meant for fleeting encounters, anonymity its strongest currency, but anonymity turned to horror when the hotel's owner stumbled upon the unthinkable, the headless body of a man. The silence in the room was deafening, the crimson-streaked sheets a macabre tableau. This wasn't just a murder, it was an act of calculated brutality. The victim, later identified as Yura Hitoshi, was a 62-year-old employee of a furniture company. Known for his unassuming demeanor, Yura was the kind of man neighbors remembered fondly but not intensely, a figure who lived in quiet respectability. That life, however, ended in a manner so violent that it defied imagination. Detectives arriving at the scene were met with a puzzle wrapped in layers of blood and shadows. The investigation began with a severe disadvantage. Love hotels operate on discretion. No names, no identification required. The lack of records left the police grasping for clues until surveillance footage offered a faint glimmer of hope. The grainy images showed Yura entering the hotel with a slender companion. Hours later, another figure, shrouded in shadows and pushing a suitcase, emerged. That suitcase would soon become the symbol of one of Japan's most grotesque crimes. Piecing together the blurry images and testimonies, the detectives followed a thread that led them to a woman named Tamura Runa. At 30 years old, Runa was striking but unremarkable in her daily life, her past dotted with struggle and instability. She had been a promising student once, but grew into an adult, defined by uncertainty. Frequent job changes, estranged family relationships, and a trail of unresolved tensions. What made this revelation more shocking was that Runa and Yura had known each other. They were not strangers bound by chance. They had shared an unlikely and troubled relationship despite their age gap. Friends and acquaintances spoke of Yura's fascination with Runa, a mixture of infatuation and paternal concern. Runa's life, fractured by a difficult childhood and unrelenting societal pressures, had drawn her to him. At first, it seemed he offered stability, but their connection became a volatile cocktail of dependence and resentment. Her family disapproved, warning Yura to stay away. But their warnings were ignored. The night of the murder, their complicated relationship reached its breaking point. That night, Yura and Runa attended a disco event, a setting that hinted at a search for fleeting joy or distraction. Witnesses described them as quiet but tense. Hours later, they checked into the Love Hotel. What followed inside that room remained shrouded in mystery, but evidence painted a horrifying picture. An argument erupted, sharp words turning into physical confrontation. In the dark hours of early morning, Runa used a blade to sever Yura's head. The calculated manner in which she cleaned the scene, packed his belongings, and left with the suitcase was chillingly deliberate. The footage of her calmly wheeling the suitcase out into the night felt like a scene from a nightmare, but the story's darkness only deepened. Police soon discovered that Runa hadn't acted alone in the aftermath of the murder. Her parents, Osamu and Hiroko Tamura, became embroiled in the case when investigators found Yura's head and personal effects concealed in their home. The gruesome discovery stunned even seasoned detectives. Why would two seemingly ordinary parents become accomplices to such a heinous crime? The answer lay in a twisted family dynamic marked by unhealthy enmeshment and denial. Runa's parents, investigators revealed, had a history of shielding their daughter from consequences. Her mental health struggles were met not with intervention, but with enabling. When she arrived at their doorstep with the suitcase, they didn't question her story. Instead, they aided her in hiding evidence, wrapping their daughter's secrets in layers of loyalty and fear. When Runa was apprehended days later, her demeanor stunned the nation. She didn't cry or protest her innocence. Her calmness was unnerving. She confessed to the murder during interrogation, stating that she had acted in desperation. Yura had wanted a future she couldn't provide, one involving commitment and possibly children. Runa saw these expectations as a trap, a suffocating weight she couldn't bear. Her only way out, she believed, was to remove Yura from her life entirely. It was a cold rationale for a crime so horrific. The trial that followed was as gripping as the crime itself. The prosecution painted Runa as calculating, her actions premeditated and deliberate. The defense, however, portrayed her as a deeply troubled woman, pushed to her limits by psychological strain and societal pressures. Her parents' role came under scrutiny, their complicity a reflection of a family dynamic that blurred the lines between love and morality. Osamu and Hiroko argued that they had acted out of panic, but the court wasn't lenient. They, too, faced sentencing, their names forever tied to their daughter's act of violence. Public fascination with the case reached a fever pitch. The media dissected every detail, turning Runa into a figure of infamy. Some saw her as a symbol of societal failure, a woman crushed under the weight of expectations she couldn't meet. Others viewed her as a cold-blooded killer, unworthy of sympathy. The case became a flashpoint for discussions on mental health, familial responsibility, and the pressures faced by women in rigid societal structures. Psychologists who examined Runa spoke of her unstable sense of self, her struggles rooted in a childhood where boundaries were either absent or oppressive. The contrast between her outward calm and the savagery of her crime highlighted the depth of her inner turmoil. Her parents, too, were scrutinized, their actions revealing the darker side of unconditional support. By shielding Runa from consequences, they had inadvertently fueled her dissent. In the courtroom, the evidence was damning. The surveillance footage, the suitcase, the bloodstains, each piece painted an inescapable picture of guilt. Runa's lack of remorse became a focal point, a chilling reminder of the depths to which human emotions can be suppressed. The sentencing brought closure to some, but left others haunted. Runa received a life sentence, while her parents were handed shorter but still significant terms for their roles in concealing the crime. The impact of the case reverberated far beyond Sapporo. It forced a reckoning on issues often swept under the rug. Mental health advocates called for better resources and intervention strategies. Sociologists debated the rigid norms that trap individuals in cycles of despair. Families everywhere were left to reflect on their own dynamics, questioning how far they would go to protect their loved ones, and at what cost. As the years passed, the Love Hotel was renovated, its bloody past obscured by new paint and furnishings. But for those who knew the story, it remained a sight of horror, a reminder of the fragility of human connections. Yura's family mourned quietly, their grief overshadowed by the media spectacle surrounding Runa. The Tamuras, once a seemingly ordinary family, became a cautionary tale of what happens when love turns blind and boundaries dissolve. The case, though resolved in legal terms, left behind more questions than answers. Could it have been prevented? What forces drive a person to commit such an act? And how do we balance compassion with accountability? For Runa, her parents, and the victim's family, the answers came too late. But for the rest of society, the story serves as a stark warning, a mirror reflecting the complexities of human behavior and the consequences of choices made in the shadows.